Let's go to Diane King Hill in New York. Let's talk some earnings. Let's talk some stories here. Baidu with numbers out. Diane, that's our kind of first report of the week, down 7%. Frustrating for those who have been bidding up the China trade to good success in these last several weeks.
It's true. You have seen the China trade, kind of expand, especially like we saw one of the catalysts was DeepSeek. With regard to Baidu, you did see revenue decline at 2%. It was better than expected, though. If you convert that to dollars, that was 4.68 billion. But again, one of the concerns about Baidu is the decline in ad revenue. So ad revenue fell 7%. Part of that obviously has to do with the struggles of China's economy. It hasn't come back to the degree that many had expected. So that's one of the concerns. And then just, yes, you are seeing some AI growth and cloud growth. You saw cloud grow more than 20%, but it's really not enough to kind of soften the concerns about declining ads. It's AI division. We know that includes the Ernie chatbot grew. And its cloud expansion is projected to grow double digits, expected to grow 13%. But the idea is, when you hear from analysts, is that it needs to scale faster, especially if it wants to offset the softness that we're seeing in advertising. And then the other issue is its positioning within the competitive landscape, right? For instance, against Alibaba, now we've seen reports that Alibaba is going to be a part of this Apple story with regard to its AI growth in China. And so with Baidu losing out on that, that's another headwind for the company, Ali.
Wow. Kind of a frustration for sure, as there's a lot of competition. So I guess you can't be totally surprised. The world of advertising and internet and e-commerce is just very, very competitive right now because everybody's launching all their own AI tools to try and get ahead.
Yeah, it matters. And then the other competitive pieces in terms of all the leaders who were meeting with China President Xi Jinping, Robin Li was notably not at the table, the head of Baidu. So then that asks the question is, where is, especially when you have these conversations about proximity to power, whether we're talking about China and the U.S. So if the proximity to power is not there, is Baidu the place that investors want to be?
Okay. I mean, it looks like on the international stage, too, I mean, you're going to have to compete with U.S. companies as well. So obviously there's enough competition within China, and then you stretch across the borders and you run into companies like Meta that seem to have built a fresh new mousetrap for advertising and eyeball attention that's just really incredible. So, all right, let's talk some planes, Diane. Kind of disturbing the amount of airline incidents so far this year. But
this is now, I believe, the fourth one. So we're watching, obviously, shares of airlines, Delta mainly, and focus off the back of the news of that plane crashing in Toronto. It was a Delta regional jet or turnover, right? The plane landed belly up.
That's
fortunately,
insane.
in this case,
it's like literally the Denzel Washington movie, Flight.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in this case, fortunately, all of the passengers survived. All 80 passengers survived. Now, there were 18 injuries, but again, no fatalities. So this is fortunate in the context of, this is now the fourth incident this year. You had the American Airlines and Army helicopter in D.C., the medical jet in Philly, that regional plane crash in Alaska. So this is now the fourth one in the North American region. You are seeing shares of Delta under a little bit of pressure, but this may be a short-term market reaction, and it seems to be how investors are viewing this. In other words, this might not be a fundamental issue. Obviously, there will be scrutiny about safety and regulatory scrutiny around this. It remains to be seen if these crashes that we're seeing now, several now this year, will have any impact to consumer demand, because one of the things that has been beneficial to the airlines is consumer demand has held up even in the face of rising inflation.
Yeah, I do wonder. I was thinking about that last night. Is at a certain point, do people stop flying? I mean, I don't know. I guess you can't really. And obviously, they stand out. It's kind of a statistical, classical kind of behavioral thing that is, 5 is a lot, but relative to everything else, it's not. So It's kind of bizarre. I mean, the market's not also seeming to take much notice either. So I guess it doesn't right now make a difference.
I think right now the market is more looking at the financials, and if this doesn't seem to be like an actual safety, and if these are kind of one-off incidents, that looks like how the market is reading this. If it becomes it's a larger issue, then obviously the market will have a different take, because right now, again, it looks like that. Want to quickly get to some action happening around Southwest Airlines.
Sure.
That is obviously a separate issue. They are doing some job cuts. They're slashing 1,750 jobs. These are from the corporate office. This is the first move of its kind, major move in terms of cost-cutting measures in its entire history, its 53-year history. They're projecting cost savings of $210 million this year and $300 million in 2026. We knew this focus on efficiency was coming, especially with regard to the shareholder activist activity around it with Elliott. So you could see that Southwest is kind of shifting how it operates in the context of how it operated historically. The shares had been higher in the pre-market. Obviously, this will be one to watch throughout the session. Again, definitely a different, kind of setup than what we're talking about with regard to Delta Airlines.
For sure. Southwest needs to try and find something to turn the stock around, as it has been very much underperforming the peers. Doesn't seem like maybe this is the immediate answer according to the market, but a lot of times these types of moves can be positive for the stock when it's kind of in the middle of a weak moment. So, but not right now. It was up earlier and faded, coming back down. One other thing to hit here, Diane. Let's talk some booze, some bud. Yeah, let's talk Constellation. Mr. Warren Buffett and team, huh? They want a little piece of the good stuff. I thought he was more a sweets and a candy guy.
I know. I will say I was a little bit surprised by this move, but look, this is the Oracle of Omaha. He knows better than I do. So we got through a regulatory filing revelation that Berkshire has taken a stake in Constellation Brands. You are seeing shares move about 5% higher on the back of this news in terms of what the stake was worth. Essentially, it's worth about $1.2 billion. The stake occurred actually at the end of last year. We know these are closely watched moves when Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett makes these kind of investments. Now, keep in mind, Constellation has obviously been under some pressure this year. They missed on earnings recently. They cut its outlook for the year. And obviously, they also have the headwind facing it because of how they bottle some of their beverages of tariffs.
Okay. All right. Well, they've got other consumer goods. So I suppose that Constellation and Domino's kind of go together. From various perspectives. All right. Thanks, Diane. Appreciate it very much.
All right. You got it.
STZ up and needed a bidder for the stock after crashing on earnings.